They would be the divinely inspired words of the Lord given by the power of the Spirit, and they would be used to teach of the nature of sin and righteousness, as the Apostle Paul wrote to the church in Rome. Therefore, as by the offense of one judgment came upon all men to condemnation, even so by righteousness of one the free gift came upon all men unto justification of life. For as by one man's disobedience many were made sinners, so by the obedience of one shall many be made righteous. But what exactly does this mean? And how does it affect the lives of the believer amidst his temporal existence? Of man's first disobedience and the fruit of that forbidden tree, whose mortal taste brought death into the world and all our woes with loss of Eden, till one greater man restore us and regain the blissful seat. The opening words of John Milton's epic poem, Paradise Lost. The story of creation and mankind's first disobedience that led to the fall from paradise has been one that has been at the center of theological discussion since almost the beginning of time itself. It has sparked the imagination of religious leaders, artists, authors, and scholars, as they have debated the issues surrounding the very nature of sin, the very nature of iniquity, and what it means in the lives of people. How could they not, though? How could they just ignore it? After all, by that first transgression, the precise character, the precise nature of humanity's very existence changed, just as God had told them that it would, just as their Creator, their Lord, had warned them that it would. What was it, though, about that forbidden fruit in that tree that Adam and Eve first partook of that separated them from their Creator? What was it about that tree and that fruit that created that spiritual divide between heaven and earth, between the divine and the temporal? And even with their first disobedience and their expulsion from Eden, would God offer them a path back? Would God offer them a road to redemption and reconciliation to bridge the gap that now laid between Him and His new creation? So God created man in His own image. In the image of God created He him, male and female He created them. And God blessed them. And God said unto them, Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. And so began the temporal existence of man, the last, yet the most glorious of God's creation in those first days, fearfully and wonderfully made in His holy and divine image. Perfect in form, flawless in being, faultless in nature, He molded them from the dust of the ground and breathed air into their lungs as He set them upon the earth to govern over it. His intent was clear. They were to live in paradise amidst a world that he had created for them by his own hand. No troubles or hardships. It was a place where they would know naught of pain and suffering, sorrow or hurt, where they would not want, as everything would be provided for them according to their needs, by the compassion and the love of their Creator. A lush garden, Eden, was ideal and pristine, filled with the wonders and the majesty of the Lord. It was here that God's divine creation could find contentment and joy, knowing nothing but that peace throughout their existence. But what was more was that they had eternity to explore and to understand the miracles that were all around them, to seek out the wisdom and the knowledge of the Lord as it surrounded them there. It was God's intention that they would live on forever, never aging, never growing any older. As he created them, so he had planned for them to remain throughout time. After all, they were in his image, and he himself was ageless, timeless. It would be his words that would clearly point to that fact. As he placed them above all the other creatures, as he placed them above all of the birds of the air and fish of the sea and beasts of the field, as he gave them dominion over the plants and the animals, to rule over all that they saw and all that God had made. He would tell them there was no death. The very nature of his decrees regarding the tree that laid at the center of the garden, given to them in the earliest of days, pointed to that certainty. It was, after all, only through disobedience to his word, disobedience to his one rule, that death would come to enter into this world. Otherwise there was no concept of what death was. Their lives would never draw to a close. Their bodies would never degrade. Their minds would never become frail or weak or any less sharp than it had been at any other point in their lives. Handing down his rules, handing down his laws, so he would tell man, of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it. For in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die. Through the forbidden fruit and that bite of it that would be taken by man, Adam and Eve would sin amidst their own iniquity as they transgressed against the rule of the Lord, falling short of the standard of God. It was only by this act that they would become mortal, their souls dying to righteousness, to that righteousness and that purity of the Lord their Creator, as they introduced temporal death into this world. It was only through the rebellion that occurred in partaking of that branch that man and woman would commit spiritual suicide, as they took their lives into their own hand and separated themselves from the Lord. Eating of it would turn their backs to the Lord their God and his wisdom, his knowledge, his truth, and his righteousness, placing their trust solely in their own hubris. But then, as Solomon would write in the words of the Proverbs, Adam and Eve were soon to find out all too well in their own lives. Pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Better it is to be of a humble spirit with the lowly than to divide the spoils with the proud.